Hello, everybody, and welcome to another cup of self-empowerment to trust, heal, and be thyself. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome a very, very special guest in our house today who's joining us for a cuppa, and this is Daisy Farrell. And Daisy is such a magical being, and I'm certain that so many of you are going to resonate so much with Daisy. So for those who don't know her, I'd just like to give a little bit of a background knowledge about Daisy. Daisy is a psychic medium, healer, and intuitive counselor. Her services provide deep soul healing and help you understand yourself at a level that you never knew possible before. She customizes and caters to your specific needs to best achieve your goals by combining mediumship, psychic work, healing, past lives, guides, shadow work, and much more. With her own life experience, she helps you remove what no longer serves you and helps you find a deeper sense of self-love and forgiveness. She is passionate about helping her clients link different things from their past to their present understanding of the world. By doing so, she empowers them to change limiting behaviors or ideas. She also strongly believes in helping clients leave a session with new skills and tools that they can put into action in their everyday life. Well, that is just beautiful. So thank you, Daisy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. So Daisy, how did you start to trust thyself on your own personal journey?
All right. So, I mean, it's definitely a long story, so I'll try to compact it as best I can. I figured in your show, since it's more about our healing journey, I could go more into kind of stuff with my addiction, things like that. Because basically,
you can obviously feel into the audience and what they're going to want to hear. Right. So, you share what you believe is going to help the people who are watching this today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so psychic mediumship, I do believe I was born with it, and I do believe that was always there. I just was one of those people that they call a latent medium. So someone that is, aware of their abilities later in life, as opposed to the minute they're, young, they're seeing stuff and they just know that that's what it is. Looking back now, I'm aware that, yeah, that's what was going on, but I just didn't know that that's what it was. But I think, especially for my story that I like to share with a lot of people, is just a lot of the struggles that I went through. And I think it's because of how sensitive I was. I think that's a huge piece there. For me, basically, as a kid, I was a super weird kid. A lot of people didn't understand me. A lot of kids didn't understand me. Yeah. And again, knowing what I know now, I think it's just because I was like in my own world kind of, and I was all about it, and I was fine with it, and I was flowing with it. But other kids were kind of like, what? They didn't really get it. So I think that started at a really young age, just kind of feeling different, not really understanding, what is it about me that, people aren't understanding. And I struggled a lot with like mental illness, all of that. I was actually hospitalized for depression when I was 13. Oh. And put on antidepressants, diagnosed with depression, all of that. And same with an eating disorder, a lot of different things. And I think, for a long time, I didn't really get why I was like that. I was just kind of confused in a lot of ways. And I just felt things very intensely. I had so much emotion and so much going on that I felt like other people like didn't understand.
They probably didn't, did they? Because you didn't know how to communicate what was going on with you either, because
yeah, exactly. Like I didn't, and being younger, like I didn't really have like the understanding or dialogue to really, know what was going on. And throughout high school, that continued, and got kind of worse. And I experienced a lot of different things, a lot of different relationship stuff and issues. And in college was when I went to art school, and that's when my addiction got really the worst. It got really, really bad and out of control for me. And again, looking back now, a lot of those things make sense. But at the time I just thought, well, I'm just crazy, I guess. I just have a problem. I don't, I didn't have the self-compassion.
Yeah.
I think I really had a lot of like self-hatred in a lot of ways. Because a lot of people that have addiction and stuff, unfortunately, we've gotten a lot better, but there's a lot out there that makes us not feel so great about ourselves, and just stigma connected to it. But I was very, very lucky. And my family has people in AA. And I actually, and like, I also, the thing, but that's so funny too, is like, I was basically an atheist at this point in my life. And, I was always open, and always loved spiritual things and was very connected to that stuff. But I didn't believe really in a higher power of any kind like that. And I know that this was definitely God, whatever you want to call it, right, doing something, but I was not going to ask for help. That was not like, I was like, I'm going to do it on my own. I got it, whatever, I'm fine. And I got in trouble at my college, and they intervened, and they told me I had to go to a program, all of that. And I was very mad. I was very mad about it at the time, but now I'm so grateful for it, because it definitely happened for a reason. And I was introduced to AA and fell in love with it. And it was just, it saved my life. It was a miracle program for me. And really AA, is about a lot of things. And it's something that I share with any of my clients, because I think the concepts of AA can be shared with any person. You don't have to be
that dogma hidden behind it. Everyone thinks, oh, we don't want to you don't want to go down that road. But I think it's so important to have this, shared openly, and it is a normality for a lot of people, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, because if you're addressing it and you're going to AA, then you are ready to make those steps to get better for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a program that like I said, could benefit any person. And so I went through that whole process, and that took a few years. There was a few years where I definitely kind of was like rejecting it, and I was like, I'm not accepting, because I was pretty young. I was like, I want to say I was about 20 when I went to my first AA meeting. So I was pretty young for people. There's a lot of young people in AA, but still, it was pretty young, and I think I was pretty resistant to it, and kind of it felt unfair for a while for me. But eventually, it kind of just I kept kind of like relapsing and then going back. But then I was finally like, okay, I get it now. It was I kind of had to experience that over and over again a few times to be like, yeah, you need this, that's what you need.
Trust it, basically, because you didn't know what it was. So you needed to trust it. You needed to see, what is this going to do for me? Help me? Is it going to help me? Can I trust the people who are involved in this program and stuff like that? And can I trust myself to allow myself to go through this, basically?
Exactly. And finally, when I basically surrendered to that process, is when it really changed my life forever. I finally stopped resisting, and I just allowed myself to be embraced by it. And I just dove into what they told me to do and everything about that program. And now I have almost 7 years sober. So
wow, that's amazing. But you had to get to that point to make that step, to trust it and to surrender to it, and to that's huge. That takes strength, and in those moments you're probably not feeling like you're the strongest person there. You probably come on, just swallow me up, I can't cope with this shit anymore. But that's real courage, I find, to actually take that step, even you keep resisting from it and then going back to it. It kept pulling you in, and then now why it was pulling you in. And thank goodness for like all of us, that you're here today to be able to share your story, because God forbid anything else happens.
Oh yeah exactly. No, and I know, like, going into it too is also how I started my connection to something greater than me, and a big part of when I just started out, because for a long time I was just very resistant to that, because I was kind of like I said,
I can get that completely.
And I was just like, I don't know, I've just never needed to do that, never thought about that. But they challenge you to do that. And but I started to be able to see certain things, and just how how things played out for me, you know, and how obviously something wanted me here, you know, because I should 100% not be here, like 100%. Just there's too many crazy things that happened to me while I was out there that just it does not make sense that I would be here. And, you know, for a long time, I think I also was just kind of like, I don't really get, like, why me, you know, why am I here? And I think the other thing that's been was so valuable, and why I like sharing this part of just my story in conjunction with just the mediumship, is just that it all ties together, like it all makes sense. And I know that, like, I went through all of that in order to have this perspective, this understanding, you know, in the work that I do, you know, and to be able to have that empathy for other people and the work that I do.
You're taking away all judgment as well, you know, every piece of judgment which could have arisen, you've been through it, you've rolled through it, you've had to dig yourself out of it. And, you know, you would never hold anyone else in that space of judgment, because you see them for what, you know, the unconditional love which is there. And because, you know, I'm sure half the time, or I don't know, you probably didn't even realize why you were grabbing at these things. And, you know, it was just calling you in, and you were just, no one can understand that unless you've gone through it yourself. So
completely. And it's funny, I mean, just because, I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, a lot of like the spirits that I'll bring through in my work tend to be people that suffered from addiction and things like that. And, you know, I love that actually, because it, you know, I find that it's actually kind of a gap in mediumship.
And it normalizes it, because, not being funny, how much there is such a huge proportion of people who are suffering with this, either they're suffering themselves, or you're watching someone going through it, you know. And it's so important that there's people out there to hold that space and to understand, ultimately to understand why, and through the mediumships to like deliver the messages as well, which need to come through. So would you say that the AA was probably the start of you, well, it was ultimately the start of you healing thyself? And then, you know, when you started going through that door of AA and doing all their programs, then I'm kind of guessing that everything else started switching on, and you allowed it to switch on. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically what happened was I did a lot of work. I did a lot of self-work, because basically, for people that don't know how AA works, you have 12 steps, and you'll have a sponsor. So somebody that has more time than you, that you admire, you know, you admire their work, and just their perspective, and you work through those steps with them. And it's basically coming to believe in a higher power. So it can be whatever you want, but it's just believing that you're not God, basically. And then from there, you go through different phases of self-work. So doing an inventory and forgiveness work, basically, on yourself and your past, and also forgiving or apologizing to people that you harmed, making amends, all of that kind of stuff. So I got to a really good place with that, and I finally felt very open. And around that time, I started just getting very connected to crystals, actually. Crystals, and like oracle cards, things like that. Because again, I will say, I have psychics on both sides of my family, and we've always been very open about that subject.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. And so it's always been something like my whole family is like very open and interested in. And for me, you know, I had a few little things. Like, the one thing that I had was I had a lot of premonition dreams as a kid and things like that, and very vivid dreams. But again, I never thought like it meant anything. But basically, I started playing with those a little bit more, and I was just getting more into energy in that way. And I had 2 years sober, and I had gone through like one of the worst years of my life. And it was just a very, very challenging year. And I lost 3 people within less than like 6 months, I believe. Yeah. So it was just a lot all at once.
Especially if you're trying to curb your addiction as well. And then, you know.
I know. For sure. And so there was just a lot going on in my life. And basically what had happened is I started having those visitation dreams and premonition dreams. And like I just mentioned, like I had some premonition dreams before, but I didn't really have the kinds that I was experiencing like this, which were like visitation dreams. So, and for example, my fiance's friend had died, and I had this dream that I was my fiance, and I was on my computer and I was Facebook messaging with his friend who had passed away. And we were just going back and forth, and he was just kind of giving basic messages to him.
Wow.
But, yeah. And I was like, that's weird. And I told Brian about it, and he's like, well, that's exactly how he would talk and everything. And I'm like, that's weird. But I didn't, I was just kind of like, I don't know, I have really weird dreams, like whatever, but like, yeah, but it's just funny, like looking back on it now, because Spirit was trying to make it like really easy for me. They're trying to make it
he was doing it in a way that you would understand, and what your fiance would obviously understand as well. So if you weren't picking up on it when you're explaining, he's like, come on,
Yeah. And just how it's like, this isn't for you, like this is for Brian, like then this is a message.
Basically. So using you as the actual vessel, as what we are when we're channeling spirit. Yeah.
And then it happened again with another friend of mine that had passed, and basically this just kept happening, where like she visited me, and it was like just where I would kind of be not paralyzed in an uncomfortable way in my dream, but it's just they're kind of like, you're just going to listen to this and that's it, you're just going to hear what we're saying and that's it, and passing that on. So I was just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. And at the same time, I started to get really bad anxiety. And I had always had anxiety and stuff, but like it started to get really bad. And I also was having like paranormal stuff going on in my apartment too. Ooh. So just a lot of things were going on. And I was pulling a lot of oracle cards too. And I kept pulling this card that said mediumship over and over and over again, like every day. I was
like, come on, we're telling you what you
okay. do. Yeah, and I just was just confused. I was just kind of like, I don't like, this is so weird. I don't know what to do about it. And my therapist actually recommended that I go see a medium to just see what's going on. And so I did it, and he basically confirmed everything for me. He was like, yeah, you're a medium, like that's what's going on. And but I didn't know what to do with that information. I was kind of like, okay, but I don't really know what to do.
It's very overwhelming as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was extremely overwhelming. And that's something that I really like to help other people with, was just that at that time when that was happening, I didn't really know what was going on. And it was very isolating. And I just felt like no one really understood, how I was feeling. And
if you explain it to someone else, they probably think you're some kind of freak show, and what the hell's she going on about? She says she's sober, boy, well, she's talking all this stuff again. Well, maybe she's not,
Yeah, completely. And I was at this very demanding job, and I just started to like dread going to work. It was just like every time I'd go there, I would just be like so overwhelmed, and I would leave early all the time. And finally, I ended up taking my first mediumship class because I was like, well, I need more help here. And I also, it was only in dreams. So I was like, I don't really buy that, like, I can do this when I'm awake. Like, I don't, that's not, And,
you come and see me, but I need to sleep while you're just in here,
Right? I know. And, but then she walked me through connecting for the first time, and it just clicked something for me.
Wow.
Where I was just like, oh, that's it. I was like, oh, okay. And then from there, I just kept practicing, but it was just once I just needed someone to show me how to do it.
Yeah.
But it just, because I just know that, because I was just born with it, and I just needed someone to kind of like connect the dots for me.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, and I just.
To plug you in, because your plug was there. It was just not quite going in the socket.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's just unfolded from there. And, but I really like to help people with anxiety and things like that around like that kind of work, because it's so common. And not only that, it is so common for psychics and mediums to be addicts too. Like that is like,
I guess you're trying to numb it down, aren't you?
Yeah. Completely.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's really interesting because, really hear it from that perspective. So it's really good, because I'm sure there's going to be people thinking, hey, this really, is good soul food for me, because, I know I'm understanding, and, yeah, even if you aren't like switched on from the moment, like yourself, from like you obviously switched on straight away, but some of us do switch on later, and it can be really overwhelming. And then, you know, maybe you are grabbing for more wine or whatever substance you're grabbing to, because you're like, okay, this is tripping me out here. I don't like it, you know, I need to somehow try and move away from it. Or I don't know, sometimes the subconscious takes over.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you do mediumship, but you do a lot of other stuff as well, don't you? What do you want to tell us about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I kind of mix a lot of different things around. But, you know, I think especially too, I think, you know, every medium's different. And I also really encourage them to be unique in that way and do their own thing. But I tend to I'm very interested in shamanism and different things like that. But I tend to kind of access all different places. And
Cool.
big
Yeah.
part of like what I'll do in sessions with people. I love bringing through people's guides. I love tapping into past lives for them, you know, using the Akashic records, a lot of different things like that. And then I also do trance and Reiki healing for people as well. Yeah.
That's cool. I've experienced that. It's very cool. Very, very cool. No, and that's, I suppose, obviously, because you've got all your tools, what you use, what you've embodied for yourself. So you're basically sharing them with everyone, how, as you said, like in your, how I said at the beginning, which is you know, custom made for them, for the people who come to you. You know exactly what you can feel into what they need. And I guess, would you agree that this is, by the way you coach or help people, that's how you properly stood into your sovereignty and being exactly who you are today, you know, own it and say, okay, I'm not the traditional medium, I'm not the traditional Reiki healer, this is how I do it, and this is how I am, and, you know, kind of like it or leave it, you know, kind of thing.
What totally. You know, because I think that's the other thing, and that was just part of my experience too in mediumship development, is that, you know, I started in the evidential mediumship community, and I have all the love for them. I think it's fantastic. However, there is definitely a lot of kind of rules and certain opinions in that community, and it's totally fine
in all communities as well. And I think, you know, that's the thing, you know, when you start trusting yourself and doing your own healing work, and then starting to be who you're supposed to be, you can kind of see through all the rules, and some of them may work, but some of them may not be aligned to you and or yourself or to your clients or anything like that. And we shouldn't get so, you know, bogged down by the dogma around everything, you know, because it is, each and every one of us is completely unique. How you evolved is completely unique to somebody else, and for me exactly the same. And, you know, there is no right or wrong, I feel personally.
I totally agree. And I think that's the thing. And that's especially when I'm helping teach other people too. I really try to, you know, I get that certain rules and things can really help us, especially when we're developing. However, I like to kind of, you know, try this rule, but then try it without, you know, try this and then try not having that rule in your space. And I just really, I started to just see that as I was developing more. I was like, you know, certain things I'm just kind of, I don't know, I'm doing my own thing. And
it's kind of like your own process, isn't it? It's, I get that we call them rules, but they're not, you know, it's kind of like how you access, you know, and each and everyone's going to have their own little gateway where they're going to say, well, I go off this way and do it this way, but I still get to like similar results to, like, you know, someone else who's doing it a different way. It doesn't mean I'm better. It doesn't mean they're better. We're just doing it differently to serve the highest good of ourselves and the people who we're working with. So
exactly.
Oh, that's really great. So what can you advise people who are on their journey to master thyself? How would you, you know, encourage them, you know, to step up and, you know, take those initial steps if they feel they're being called to?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is, and this was true for all kind of phases of things that I went through, is just that you can't do it alone. Like you have to reach out to people, and you need to trust that, because I think it's very common for just most people, right? Like we want to go it alone, or we're afraid of being seen as weak or vulnerable, or and that's a weakness, or that we failed if we have to ask for help. You know? And that's not true. That actually, I think, is a total opposite. I think it takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't got it, you know, and I need that support. Because I know for me, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere with what I was going through, had I not reached out and just trusted my gut with the people I was connecting with and helping me understand not only stuff with just sobriety, but also with mediumship. So that's my biggest, I think, thing for advice.
And I think it's also really, as you say, you can't go it alone. You shouldn't feel you have to go it alone. You shouldn't feel that you're some kind of freak show and you're doing it on, that if you ask that you're weak. But also, you do get to that point when you're connecting the dots and you're trusting the other people. Someone who's really there for you, who's really going to keep you accountable, is going to hold you going to give you their hand to hold. They're gonna, put you in your place if you're kind of not, dancing outside the lines, not really, owning your stuff, but also they will help you so far until you're ready to walk that path on your own. And then, and that person's always there if you need them. So, it's kind of like a collaboration, you're equally, okay, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm weak. Well, actually, no, not at all. You're taking that courageous step to go forward, but equally you're helping someone else at the same time, because you're helping someone else step into their, what they're supposed to do here. So you're walking that path together. So it's actually really beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh, so how can people reach out to you, Daisy, if they feel right? Okay, because you've obviously probably teach a lot of stuff as well, and and I hear haven't you got some great retreat coming up as well?
Yeah, I have a retreat with Laura Mazzata, and it's actually in less than 2 weeks, which is
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm so excited. It's going to be in the Berkshires, so it's beautiful. We do have 2 spots left, and we also have virtual tickets available. So I can even give you the link to share with people if you want. But yeah, if people want to reach out to me, they can find me at daisyfarrell.com. And my website is going to be temporarily down for like a couple of months. So they really can just message me on my Facebook page, which is Inner Key Alchemy, which I can also give you a link for. And that's also Inner Key Alchemy on Instagram as well. And I'm just Daisy Farrell on Facebook. So people can feel free to message me on any of those platforms. I'm always happy to talk to anybody. I really like to encourage anyone that, just feels like they're going through it or something like that, with abilities or something like that, feel free to reach out, because I really understand, and I'm always happy to support and just talk it out with you. So
I think what really stayed present in my mind since we're speaking is the fact that you were atheist. You didn't actually believe in anything, and now so it isn't, you don't have to be religious to walk this path. You don't have to. It's just it's just that something else out there, and you can believe in whatever you want. It can be portrayed to you however you want. However, it's best for you to comprehend that and embody that. There is no right or wrong, and basically you're just returning, you're just rerouting back to yourself.
I love that.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Daisy, for joining us today, and I'm sure you've really helped a lot of people today, and thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing such a private story about yourself and how you went on your journey, because not everyone's ready to speak that out sometimes. So thank you so much, and I'm sure that's going to give people a lot of inspiration, maybe to speak out stuff that they might be not willing to speak out right now because they might be feeling ashamed. You don't need to feel ashamed,
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. No, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And I hope that we can have you again soon, very soon indeed. And to everyone else, thank you for watching, and we look forward to welcoming you back to another cup of self-empowerment sometime very, very soon. So take care, and bye-bye. Bye.